Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as always by Fansided's MLB insider Robert Murray, recapping the winter meetings. They're done. Robert is home. He's not at the Hilton in Dallas. No one is sleeping. No one is active. Juan Soto is getting introduced in Flushing, Queens right now, and we are live on the show to talk about the news from the week, what to expect moving forward, what might be close, opening up that notebook and responding to your questions. Yesterday, live on the air, Robert, we got the Garrett Crochet trade. We will try to fully contextualize it a little bit more today.
Yeah, no, that we will. Yesterday it was mad chaos, and now we have the full return. We have time to digest and figure out exactly what was going on with that and how that ended up happening and what's next. I can't wait to break it down. We got much more in the notebook now that I'm finally home and kind of rested from the winter meetings. It feels good to be back in Scottsdale. Feels good to be reunited with Cooper, who is sound asleep behind me, much like your GMs. Adam Weinrib, how you doing, good sir?
I am good. I just found out Juan Soto has not heard from any of his Yankees teammates since the end of the World Series. And I got to say, phones work both ways, buddy. You can text, but you can also join us here live on the Baseball Insiders at 3:30 Eastern every Monday, Wednesday, Friday during the heart of the offseason. And obviously this week, winter meetings, we're live every day. We'll be live again tomorrow at 3:30, updating you on anything that happens between today's show and tomorrow's. I think I was kind of expecting one more big move to maybe drop last night. We did not get it, but still plenty bubbling on the hopper that we can talk about and a full reaction to the Crochet news. Join us in the Discord while you're here. That's where we get your questions. That's where we give you priority from the All-Star channel into this chat. You can just hit join right under the video. That's how you get the Discord link. Also, just subscribe while you're here. Give us a like. Turn notifications on so you know when we're going live, when we're a little off schedule. Thursday, 3:30 used to be our old go-to time. Today, we're back. But yeah, for the heart of the offseason, December, January, probably going to be doing 3 shows a week that whole time and keeping everybody posted on the latest rumors. Also, subscribe to the Moonshot if you haven't. Both Robert and I were in there this week. That is Fansided MLB's newsletter weekly, bringing down the biggest stories in baseball with humor and insight. So please get on that mailing list. And speaking of breaking down stories, Garrett Crochet was traded to the Boston Red Sox live on this show. I think let's just take a step back, macro view. Yesterday, people were texting Robert. People were saying, wow. People were sharing insightful thoughts like, whoa, and that's nuts. Now we've had a little bit of time to reflect. Thoughts on that Crochet package to Boston? Too small, just right. You got to give to get. They break up the big four. Kyle Teal obviously could have helped that Red Sox big league roster, but you hold on to Campbell and Anthony, those two, centerpieces of the system. You trade Braden Montgomery as well, who, given the amount of outfield depth Boston already has in the system, felt destined to be traded from the moment he fell into their laps in the draft last year.
Yeah.
2 really talented pieces, people like Meadroth, people like Wickelman Gonzalez. I mean, good get by Chris Getz, in my opinion. Something the Red Sox have to do, and now obviously the question turns to extension.
Yeah, I'll start with the White Sox's end of this. Is Chris Getz did a masterful job in handling this process. Is he ended up getting pretty ripped for the 3-team trade that they ended up doing last deadline, but decided to hold on to Garrett Crochet and wanted to get the best package, both in terms of value but also quantity as well. And in this trade, he ended up doing so. Like the prospects he ended up getting from Boston are all impact players, headlined by Kyle Teal. Getting Braden Montgomery was a huge addition for them. And it really accelerates their rebuild. And they are not close to contending by any means. Like this isn't going to end up putting them in the World Series conversation in 2025 or 2026. But it ends up further bolstering their long-term foundation in Chicago. I would expect them to continue to explore the trade market for a guy like Luis Robert Jr. In the outfield there. I would imagine they'll continue to listen on some other players on the major league roster as well. But Crochet was the one that they had to get right. And getting that return from Boston, they absolutely nailed it. So great job by Chris Getz. As far as the Red Sox go, early in the show yesterday, I was pretty adamant that they needed to do something. They needed to do something big, because that fan base was not just losing patience, but it had lost patience. And getting Crochet was a huge addition for them. It does not add much to the payroll for this year. And I think that allows Craig Breslow to have additional flexibility to continue to upgrade the roster. And a point that I'm going to make in a column later today on Fansided is that this cannot be the Red Sox's only move. They need to continue to make some big additions. They have plenty of money to spend, as evidenced by their bid to Juan Soto. From what I've gathered, they're continuing to look for starting pitching. They do need to continue to add to the lineup, especially get some right-handed hitters into that lineup as well. So the work is not done for a guy like Breslow, but getting Crochet was a great start. It was a good trade for them. Prospects are just lottery tickets. There's no such thing as a sure thing prospect, except for maybe a guy like Juan Soto. I think he was a pretty sure thing at the time. But I understand the trade from the Red Sox. They had to do it. They did it. They have more to do, but so far, I give them credit. I was giving them some flack, but they ended up doing a good thing here and now bolster the rotation.
Yes, bolster they did. We were on the Red Sox. There should be more to be done in Boston, but that's an ace. That's ace upside. People are making the Tarek Skubal comparisons. We've only got 1 year's worth of evidence of Crochet as a starter, right? And that year was great in the first half, fell off in the second half as they limited his innings. And from what we've heard, I see a comment saying any intel on Luis Castillo to the Red Sox. From what we heard yesterday, they were still seeking another top-end arm. The rumor that it was some sort of Tristan Casas for Castillo thing was shut down pretty emphatically. I think Alex Spire just got a no. But we know Boston's still looking, so you'd have to imagine there's probably more that they're going to plumb before the offseason's over.
No, I think you're spot on about that. And it was, as soon as I ended up leaving the winter meetings, it seemed like every report was linking the Red Sox and the Mariners to like a trade involving one of the Mariners starting pitchers. And to my knowledge, there have been conversations. I do think Luis Castillo makes a lot of sense for the Boston Red Sox, but to me, you cannot, if you're getting Luis Castillo, you cannot trade Tristan Casas. That would be a brutal trade for the Red Sox. Like they envision, and even Craig Breslow said on the radio today that they envision Rafael Devers being their third baseman, which would end up having Casas at first base, which to me, if you have those two guys in the corner infield, you have a really good foundation there. But you cannot trade Casas in a scenario like that. You find a way to bolster the rotation without moving Casas or anyone like that. But I expect them to continue to add to the rotation. To my knowledge, I don't believe they're done. They shouldn't be done. First of all, they absolutely should not be done. We even saw Chris Castillo today report that they've had conversations with John Means, and I would imagine there's been plenty of other players that they've had contact with as well. But they remain active on the market. Would not surprise me if Breslow got additional deals across the finish line in the coming days and weeks. So remains to be seen. But yeah, Crochet was the big one.
Well, let's give the people what they want, and I know the people want it based on the number of people who are just on our Yankees stream. Kyle Tucker. I thought maybe there'd be a little bit more progress made here yesterday, especially because of that rumored Cubs offer. If Paredes and Suzuki are both on the board and Shaw and Cam Smith are being discussed, I mean, those are a lot of big names for a 1-year rental in Kyle Tucker. It seemed like an incredible 1-year rental, but a 1-year rental nonetheless. It did seem like the Cubs were moving closer to being the most serious players in that mix. The Yankees were thought to maybe be a better fit for Cody Bellinger. I know the Yankees have been thinking about bandying about Bellinger for weeks. So I'm curious about the Tucker trade talks as well as the Yankees and Cubs talking on Bellinger. Like, what happens first? Does one need to happen before the other? Could these happen out of order? I mean, what is the latest you're hearing? And there are other teams involved on Tucker too, right? It's not just the Cubs and Yankees going head to head here.
Yeah, there's other teams that are involved in Tucker. And when a player of that caliber is being listened to or listened on, like there's going to be plenty of teams checking in to see exactly what it's going to take. But as far as the two big suitors so far, it's been the Cubs and the Yankees. And I'm a little, I don't know if the Astros would trade Tucker to the Yankees, just considering their history and their rivalry. I think that's something that we absolutely got to keep in mind here. But I mean, at the end of the day, if the Yankees end up offering the Astros a package they can't refuse, they can't turn it down, because you have to look out for the best of your franchise, and they're listening on Tucker. But and the Cubs are absolutely involved in this. Like that is definitely real. Seiya Suzuki has been mentioned. Isaac Paredes has been mentioned as well. If I'm the Cubs, I would be willing to include either one of those players. But the player I would not be willing to include if I was the Cubs is Matt Shaw. Everything I have heard about Shaw for like the last year or so paints him as a guy who is a foundational piece, and he's been tearing it up last year in the minors, and he's got a lot of fans in baseball, and he's going to be one of the best prospects, not just with the Cubs, but in just baseball in general. And moving a guy like that for a rental would not be something I'm eager to do. And I know there's been reports about Tucker wanting an extension as part of a trade. That's not true. Why would he want to do an extension after seeing Juan Soto get $765 million? He's going to be in position to get 3, 4, heck, I mean, maybe even $500 million if he ends up having a great year next year. He's going to cash in. He has absolutely no reason to do an extension. I can't imagine he would do one. So any team that acquires him, whether it's the Cubs, whether it's the Yankees, or whether it's one of the 28 other teams or 27 other teams, they have to understand it's going to be a rental situation and not a sign and then or not a trade and then sign into an extension kind of deal.
Yeah, he's not an $800 million player, and Steve Cohen already has a right fielder at this point for another year before he becomes a permanent DH. Yes, obviously salty, but Kyle Tucker just saw what happened to Juan Soto on the market. He's going to want to take advantage of that to some extent. Anything else that came across your desk, things that maybe heated up right before the winter meetings ended and you're like, I thought this could get to the finish line. I'm kind of surprised it didn't get closer. Anything on your radar as we enter the weekend?
Yeah. Also, one other point I wanted to make on Tucker, and then I'll get into this as well, is the Yankees, they want to move Aaron Judge to right field, and
Please.
Tucker is a right fielder as well. So that'd make it real tough to end up doing that. So, I mean, Judge can play center field. He's one of the better right fielders in baseball, but he's kind of middle of the road as far as defender goes in center field. So, and also getting him out of center field would prolong his career because that's a lot of wear and tear for a guy, especially of that size. So I think that's another thing we got to keep in mind as well. But as far as what else I was hearing leaving the winter meetings is Corbin Burns' market is active. I do now believe the Giants are in play here, and Scott Boras ended up meeting with Buster Posey in recent days, and they had conversations. I don't necessarily know what about, but you have to imagine a guy like Corbin Burns, who has plenty of history in California. He went to college at St. Mary's, grew up in Bakersfield, California. He's got a lot of ties to that area, and you would imagine you want to go back and be closer to home. So I think that's something to watch. So I've been skeptical about the Giants' interest in previous shows. I'm kind of changing tune a little bit here. I think that's a fit that makes a lot of sense there. Let's see. As far as the other stuff that's going on, the Dodgers remain involved in the bullpen market. They are interested in Tanner Scott and Devin Williams, as Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic first reported. Good job by Fobs there. I was with him when he reported that. So a job well done by one of my best pals in baseball. And Scott would be a tremendous addition for a team like the Dodgers. They've been looking for another bullpen arm, and Scott's been one of the better relievers in baseball, especially last year where he was brilliant both in Miami and San Diego. Devin Williams, I don't think it's a guarantee he's moved this offseason, but that being said, he's got 1 year remaining on his contract. There is plenty of interest in him. I would even call it significant interest in a guy like Devin Williams. And he has 1 year remaining on his contract, which is very similar, or it's a similar spot to what they ended up doing with Josh Hader and Corbin Burns when they moved both of those guys. So that is definitely something to watch this offseason, or if they don't even move him now at the trade deadline. But those are the two things that I'm kind of watching the closest here. As now I'm home in Scottsdale, and the rest of the offseason is going to be continuing to go here.
That was a Discord question too, so good job getting a jump on that, talking about the Dodgers, Devin Williams, and Tanner Scott. Another question that was in the Discord because of Cran, also known as Canyon, as well as in the comments, something popping up about the Pirates yesterday about how Luis Ortiz goes in that Cleveland deal. And it was like, man, don't be, surprised if this isn't the last member of the rotation to move, or look at it trading Mitch Keller, which is wild, but also he's got a contract and they're the Pirates, so I get it. But we're also it was like, I think the language implied they were heavily shopping Jared Jones, which is something that we have thrown cold water all over in the recent past and would make precious little sense. Jared Jones is entering his sophomore season. If you're worried about arbitration numbers, you're worried about the wrong guy. So anything you can clear up with regard to the Pirates rotation, trade, thoughts? I mean, Jared Jones makes no sense to me.
No, moving Jared Jones makes no sense to me either. And he is a guy you build around. You don't trade him now unless you're just absolutely blown away with an offer. And I think what this is more of the Pirates listening on Keller and Jones rather than shopping them. And there is a significant difference in lingo there and what that means. Because if you're shopping a player, that means you want him moved. If you're listening, that is legitimately what every team does on 99.999% of players. That is what good organizations do. Does not mean that they're trading them. It means that they're seeing what's out there. They're being responsible. They're doing what good GMs do and good front offices do. If I'm the Pirates, I would not be in a hurry whatsoever to move either player, but especially Jared Jones. And if you end up moving a guy like Keller, fresh off in that extension, which happened within the last year, that would send the wrong message to that locker room. And I think this is a really good time to put some pressure on Bob Nutting, because you have a really strong core player in that group, or core group of players on that roster, especially in that rotation. You have pieces on offense that are headlined by Brian Reynolds. You have the makings of a team that if you went and spent big in free agency, whether it's getting a guy like Christian Walker or going out and getting another sort of impact bat or two, you're not far off from winning that division and being a team that is like able to compete in the National League. And the fact that he's not doing that and not willing, at least as of this point, to invest significant resources into that roster, that's a tough look. You have to go all in, invest in that roster, especially when you have Paul Skeens signed for cheap, because this is a maybe once in a lifetime kind of opportunity that Nutting has, and he's not allowing his front office to do it and invest into that roster. That's frustrating. The Pirates and the Pirates fans deserve better than that. And this is my call for Bob Nutting to go out and change that, because it's not too late for you to do so.
Turn the screws on Bob Nutting. We love it. Comments also saying, Steve Cohen said Juan Soto wants to win 2 to 4 World Series over the next 10 years. Yep, I want a pony as well. That sounds like a great thing to want. Good questions in the Discord, and then we'll get to a few in the comment section as well. Hunter asked about the Pete Alonso market. I was going to ask about the Pete Alonso market regardless. Seems like we've heard nothing. It really does. I mean, you and I have sort of touched base on Seattle a little bit, but conventional wisdom is he's out of their price range. But what's the price range? Like, conventional wisdom is the Mets kind of need him back behind Soto. Have they had contact? Now, can they move on to other business as the Mets duck out of Garrett Crochet? Mets and Yankees in on Crochet too. They duck out. The Red Sox take advantage. What's going on with Pete Alonso right now? And it does feel like the Mets have an opportunity here. We know how limitless their cash is, and his market appears to be capped.
No, and I think Alonso's kind of dealing with a limited market here. And one team that is involved is the New York Mets, and they remain engaged on Pete Alonso. And Steve Cohen even just said to reporters there in New York that hopefully that they end up getting there in terms of reaching an agreement with Pete Alonso. And to me, that's the most natural fit for him. I think that makes a lot of sense. Keeping him in New York, keeping him in Queens, and pairing him with Juan Soto, pairing him with Francisco Lindor would further bolster that lineup there in New York. I think that's the fit that makes the most sense. I think a team like the Nationals makes sense as well, because as I reported yesterday, they are engaged with Christian Walker. Obviously, they're both tremendously talented players, but there is a key difference in that Walker is probably going to get around a 3-year deal, and Alonso will be getting a long-term contract. And I think the Nationals would be more willing to end up doing a shorter-term deal than going out and spending the kind of money it'll take to get Alonso. That's just my 2 cents, but that's what I'm believing now. But the Mets engaged on Pete Alonso. I would imagine they will continue to stay engaged in the rotation market. Would not be surprised if they end up looking at getting another bat. But the Mets are far from done. They have indicated to Scott Boras and even said so that they're continuing to look to possibly even add another star alongside Juan Soto. They said that yesterday when he ended up meeting with reporters in Dallas, Texas. So Mets are far from done, and I think Alonso is still a player who is a firm interest there.
That makes all the sense in the world, especially because we've heard precious little about Alonso other than just being like, well, that kind of makes sense after Soto. So I would imagine they stay engaged and are able to get something done. Drew in the Discord asking about a Dylan Cease trade. And I'll spin this off into sort of that wild John Heyman clip yesterday where he insinuated that the Padres, Arise, Bogarts. I mean, you could tell he was almost stopping himself and just bringing up every name on the San Diego Padres with a semi-substantial commitment. And Joseph Cuevas just showed up in the comments asking a similar question. So shout out as well. Good question. Yeah, I mean, Cease, Arise, Bogarts. Is your thought that any of these people ultimately do get traded, or if this is just the Padres putting out feelers on pretty much everybody who's not tied down, like Machado and Tatis? But that has not stopped the internet from also being like, can we get Machado? Can we get Tatis? Like, people are saying what they're going to say.
No, people are saying what they're going to say. That being said, though, like I think what John reported makes perfect sense. If I was the Padres, I would listen on Xander Bogaerts. I would listen on Dylan Cease. I'd listen on Luis Arraez. I'd listen on all these players, except for maybe Machado and Tatis, because I can't imagine there's any scenario in the world where either one of those two players gets traded. But as far as a guy like Dylan Cease goes, I think that he's a player that the Padres should absolutely continue to listen on. And I would like, if you look at the starting pitching market now, especially seeing the prices that are out there and what you could possibly end up getting in return for a guy like Dylan Cease, I think it absolutely warrants Preller in that front office listening on him or any of these other guys in general, because this is a market where you can really capitalize on maximizing value. And if you don't think you're going to re-sign Dylan Cease long-term, then I think that is something you absolutely explore. And also, too, is his agent, Scott Boras, is not exactly known for doing extensions before free agency, which I think would further bolster their reasoning for trying to move a guy like Dylan Cease. But I don't think that they're actively shopping any of these players by any means. I think this is a case of listening. And another part of this, too, that I also want to keep in mind is Bogarts. That was a huge overpay in the moment. He has one of the worst contracts in baseball. How many teams are going to be in a hurry to accept that and try to get that contract on their books, unless the Padres include multiple prospects in that deal? I can't imagine the Padres would be in a hurry to do that. I can't imagine any team would be in a hurry to get Bogarts' contract, so I'm skeptical about their chances of moving him. As far as Arise, I don't necessarily have a good feel on that one. But as far as listening on their big salaries, makes all the sense in the world, but does not mean a trade is necessarily guaranteed to happen.
I do see the comments saying Luis Arraez seems like a Yankee. I have always wanted to have Arraez hitting in front of all Rise. And oops, we just lost 300 subscribers. Well, all good. Love you guys. Vincent has asked a few times about substantial Angels news or prediction. We're not really big on predictions. We read the tea leaves and say what we know. But any thoughts, any Angels tidbits you picked up at the winter meetings?
I first want to say, Adam, I am so proud of you for using the phrase tea leaves before I have, because it's been a while since I've said that. So thank you for bringing that back. The show has been desperately missing that, so I appreciate you for doing that. But as far as the Angels go, I think it's very consistent with what I've said on the previous shows. Is they're looking at every other position besides catcher, really. I have a hard time seeing them making a big splash. I'm really skeptical about the Nolan Arenado buzz because he wants to be with a contending team. And if you want to contend, I can't imagine the Angels are going to be high up on that list of teams you want to go to. So I'm skeptical on that one. But Perry is active. He's having conversations. But the rumor of them being close to moving one of their outfielders at the winter meetings, that was not accurate. That I can definitely say. Yeah,
we're still waiting, and maybe we'll see. But thank you for the question, and we'll get you information when we do have it. I've seen important views a few times ask about the Reds. I want to ask about the Reds, too, because Garrett Crochet, we know they were somewhat involved, or at least rumored to be involved, did not ultimately pony up. They have some controllable starters they could consider trading. I've been thinking about Josh Naylor, a Terry Francona acolyte from his Cleveland days, especially after the Guardians worried about the escalating Andres Jimenez, commitment and maybe another there was a rumor that, hey, another subpar offensive year and we can't trade him, so they trade him now. I don't know how much the Guardians want to get out from under, but Naylor to Cincinnati does feel like a nice fit. Any thoughts on what the Reds might be up to?
It does sound like Biscuit is awoken from the slumber.
Can you hear that? You can hear Biscuit? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear Biscuit. Hi, Biscuit. Cooper, who was sound asleep behind me, says hello.
Biscuit does. He sleeps a lot of the day, and then around now, he just decides that he doesn't want to anymore. So shout out everybody if you're listening to Biscuit yapping. No, we don't have John Morosi on the show as a special guest. It's just
no, I'm not going there. Not going there. I'm a good boy. But as far as the Reds go, the one prominent rumor I heard at the winter meetings was that they were trying for a bat. As far as who that bat was or who that bat is, I don't know. That was the big mystery I was trying to solve at the winter meetings. But they are looking for a bat. They have had conversations on numerous different fronts. I do think a guy like Josh Naylor makes a lot of sense, especially considering his ties to Terry Francona from their days in Cleveland together. So I think that's something to keep in mind for sure. But that's the one thing I can tell you on the Reds is that they're looking for a bat.
As I rushed to unmute because I had Biscuit yapping in the background. Yeah, so many shout outs to Biscuit in the chat. We love to see it. Somebody just commented, this is the power that the chat has. Somebody commented, that's your Yankee news. And I was like, what Yankee news? What the hell happened? Nothing. Biscuit, I guess, is the Yankee news. He does have a Yankee jersey. He probably outgrew it this year, I think. Will we get him another one? Or will we get him the old Mets Soto 22? TBD. Couple more players I suspect, maybe wrong, I don't know, and I suspect this might be the last show we do. We're going to be live tomorrow, but before Alex Bregman signs, it did feel like that was maybe coming to a head yesterday. So maybe not by tomorrow, but by Monday, I kind of suspect we might be having some finality there. Anything you sussed out from that market? We had a few people asking.
Yeah, like his market was heating up at the winter meetings. I don't know of anything close or done at this point. But the interest is absolutely there. And you can look at it, teams like the Red Sox as a potential fit. I think they make sense there. The Detroit Tigers, the Houston Astros have obviously made it. They're very clear that he's their number one priority. So there is interest there, but I don't think anything is close there. Burns, I heard yesterday he was still a few days away. So I would like maybe something's changed since I last checked. But I wasn't necessarily like hanging by my phone late last night or anything for that one. As far as Profar's market, Profar does have an extensive market, Drew. I had heard at one point this offseason there was like 7 to 8 teams involved. Padres, their catching market, it's not looking good. There's not very many options out there. They have interest in James McCann, but they have not lined up on money. They're not. I don't think they're going to be in a position to spend a lot of dollars there. So I wouldn't necessarily get your hopes up there. What's happened with Carson Kelly and the Cubs? I don't know why that deal is not getting announced, but to my knowledge, it's an agreement. So that is currently where that's at right now. Teoscar Hernandez, I still think he goes back to the Dodgers, but there's been nothing done there. Yeah, but there's other teams involved there, but my guess is he probably goes back to the Dodgers.
Cool. And we appreciate all comments. Never apologize for commenting. We love all you folks in the comments. So thanks for asking questions. Thanks for coming to the show. Devastating news. Michi just informed me the Yankee news is that they still suck. Oh, no. I don't think I'll ever get over that burn. Maybe by next show. We'll be back here 3:30 Eastern time tomorrow. Bring your questions. Join us in the Discord. Hit the join button again below the video. Submit your questions in the All-Star channel there. Robert and I are in the rumor mill tier hanging out. It's a fun community. No better time to be in it than this winter when so much stuff is moving. But again, anything that changes between today's show and tomorrow, we will update you on. Hopefully we get a little bit of clarity. And not a bad winter meetings, to be honest. All things considered. People complain about how slow it was, and I thought Soto was going to break the dam or whatever. I mean, Garrett Crochet changes hands, goes to Boston. Max Fried to the Yankees. Like, Carson Kelly to the Cubs, 3 really high-profile trades. But at least we started the Kyle Tucker train. Like, things were rolling.
No, things were rolling for sure. And also, too, I'm seeing a lot of people end up giving Yankees players flack for giving Juan Soto space throughout this process.
Yeah.
That's exactly what ended up happening last offseason or 2 off seasons ago or whenever it was. My off season is getting mixed up in my head. with when Aaron Judge was a free agent, is they wanted to give him space, allow him to make the decision that was best for him and his family. So I would not give Yankees players, especially Judge, flack for not reaching out to Soto during the process. I think that's always a responsible thing to do. I would relax on the Yankees players for doing that. I don't know if you're giving them flack at them or not, but no, I don't think so. But there's other people that I'm seeing on Twitter, especially giving a lot of flack. So be easy on them. I think they were doing what Soto wanted. So just lay off of them is what I'm thinking here. Also, Jacob Zanola is very short. He said on Twitter today that he is taller than me. That is categorically false. That was the most inaccurate thing I've seen reported all offseason. So Zanola, I'm putting you in your place. You're short. And it was not very nice meeting him. I'm just kidding. It was actually very nice meeting him. He's a nice guy, but he's short.
People clowning the Yankees on Twitter. I mean, what? There's got to be a first time for everything. That's crazy. First I've heard of that. I got was obviously, Robert, you tweeted a clip from yesterday's show. And in that clip, I was, as is typical, like nodding and sitting silently. And somebody said I had like the most chaotic, anxious energy they'd seen of any baseball reporter. So shout out. I guess I do. Sometimes I watch myself and I'm like, man, I really am like scratching my head and drinking a coffee. But that's what the winter meetings will do to you. We had so much to get through today, all week long. We'll be back here tomorrow afternoon. Pretty excited about that. So come join us. Turn your notifications on. If you don't have them, couldn't do the show without Robert Murray. And Robert was here. Whether it was in Dallas, where he dwarfed Jacob Zanola, or back at home in Scottsdale, where if he poses with Cooper is roughly the same height as Jacob Zanola. Either way, he's helping us out. Robert, thank you so much, man.
No, thank you. And sources do tell me that Cooper is actually taller than Jacob Zanola. So we shout out to Coop for that. But we appreciate everyone who's tuned into this show. Not possible without you guys. Not possible without Adam Weinrib, but not possible without our lovely producer, Joanne. So we appreciate you big time. And we'll see everyone back here mañana at the same time. Right, Adam?
What you doing mañana? Mañana I'm doing nada. Come back, join us 3:30 Eastern time. We'll see you right here. Thanks for joining us on the Baseball Insiders.
Thank you, everybody.